A female employee with developmental disabilities works in the same department as I do. She was harassed severely by our boss, prompting me to defend her, something I hadn't anticipated would result in such harsh treatment. My name is John. I'm employed in the planning and sales department of a machinery manufacturing company. Emma. Hey, Emma. Oh, yes. What is it? After several attempts to capture her attention, the female employee responds. Her name is Emma, and she's my junior colleague. Emma, this is an important document, isn't it? It was left on the copier. Oh, sorry. Thank you. This exchange is just one of many today. Emma often makes the same mistakes for a reason. She has a developmental disorder and tends to forget things. This is why she frequently leaves documents behind, as she did this time. However, her focus on work surpasses anyone else's, and she has been a great help to us on multiple occasions. If you're carrying documents, it might be a good idea to keep them in your bag. Yes, I'll remember that. Emma is diligent and honest, so my colleagues and I often support her. Except for one person. Hey John, come here. A man calls out to me, irritation in his voice. It's Mr. Anderson, our department head. Visibly upset, he beckons me. I have a rough idea of why. You need to be stricter with Emma. It's your lenient training that's hindering her progress. But she has a disability. I attempt to reason with him, but Mr. Anderson insists on being hard on Emma. In fact, he holds a low opinion of women in the workplace. Women should just stay at home and take care of the house. Many female employees have left our department due to his attitude, which involves frequent harassment. The severe lectures and demeaning comments were excessive, often reducing many women to tears. With so many departures, you would expect an investigation into the department, but oddly, that has never happened. Now, Emma is his target. It infuriates me that she thinks having a disability gives her special privileges. What if I claim to have a disability? Could I then do whatever I please? I try to pacify Mr. Anderson, finding his remarks problematic. I'll take good care of her, so please be lenient this time. I manage to convince him and return to my seat. Of course, I hope Emma can be more mindful about forgetting things, but the most crucial improvement needed is in Mr. Anderson's attitude and mindset. Then, one day, an incident occurs. Emma misses a meeting with a key client. The client is highly displeased and considers canceling all future business with us. See, nothing good comes with her around. Mr. Anderson blames Emma, leaving her completely frightened. Emma, why did you miss the meeting? You usually note it in your schedule. But Mr. Anderson said he would attend instead and told me not to come. Upon hearing her words, I seek clarification. Apparently, Mr. Anderson had informed Emma a few days prior that her presence at the meeting was unnecessary. She was excluded because he disapproved of women being too assertive. Her schedule indeed reflects this. Mr. Anderson, weren't you supposed to attend today's meeting? I confronted him, showing him Emma's schedule. Apparently, he had forgotten about it himself, as his face turned pale. Please stop pushing your mistakes onto your subordinates. She just followed your instructions. I was fed up with everything that had happened and spoke out strongly. But the response I got was shocking. Even so, this can be used as an excuse to fire Emma. I can just say she made up those notes herself and twist the story however I want. What was this man even saying? Trying to save his own skin by making a subordinate take the blame. And for someone completely innocent, no less. I had reached my limit. Before I knew it, I had thrown the coffee from Mr. Anderson's desk onto him. What the hell are you doing? That's my line. Do you even realize what you're trying to do? Our commotion had by now caused a stir among the others. Having gone this far, there was no turning back. but I couldn't stand by and watch Emma be unjustly fired over such unfairness. I was prepared to lose my job as I confronted Mr. Anderson. "I'm the head of this department. Don't criticize my decisions. No, if you're wrong, I will speak up." My attitude must have been disagreeable to Mr. Anderson. His face turned red with anger. Mr. Anderson said he would talk to HR and have me fired. At this point, it was just astonishing. It was his mistake in the first place, yet he was so quick to deflect blame onto others. I thought HR would understand if I explained everything. But reality was more cruel than I had imagined. "I've heard from Mr. Anderson. It seems you've been disrupting the harmony of the department." "What? What do you mean?" I was at a loss for words at HR Manager Michael's accusation. Disrupting the department's harmony. This was completely unfounded. Michael said that Mr. Anderson reported I was slacking off at work and repeatedly harassing other employees. That's nonsense. If you ask the other employees, they'll tell you. I tried to persuade him, but Mr. Anderson interrupted and I was forcibly removed. Outside the room, I confronted Mr. Anderson. "It's a lesson for those who oppose me. If I say it, even false information will be believed by that Michael." Mr. Anderson smirked as he said this. It turned out that Michael was Mr. Anderson's junior from their college days and would believe anything he said. In the end, my actions were utterly futile. I was left with nothing but despair. Back at the department, Emma approached me, looking downcast. "Thank you for standing up for me, and I'm really sorry for causing you trouble." "No, Emma, you did nothing wrong. I just did what anyone should do." What I did wasn't wrong. Even if it played into Mr. Anderson's hands, there's no shame in my actions. If my sacrifice could protect Emma, even for a short time, it wasn't all bad. I reassured myself. No matter what happens, I can be proud of what I did. The next day, as expected, I received my termination notice. I wasn't fired, but I was demoted and transferred to another department. My income would decrease, but at least I wouldn't starve. That was a small consolation. Reassuring myself with these thoughts, I finished preparing for the transfer and said my goodbyes. This is what happens when you defy me. Your sacrifice has probably made it clear to everyone that no one can oppose me now. You did a good job for me. Mr. Anderson mocked me with a triumphant smirk. I briefly greeted him and left the place. Then, Emma chased after me. "John, it's because of me that you're being transferred, isn't it? It's not your fault. The problem was the other party." I smiled at her, trying to reassure her. I was genuinely worried about what would happen after I left. Knowing Mr. Anderson, he would surely continue to pressure her and force her to resign. While Emma had her challenges, she was an essential part of the team. "Emma, no matter what happens, believe in yourself and don't give up, okay?" Leaving her with those words, I left the company. The next day, I went to my new department. It was a cleaning team in a factory, and the only other member was an elderly lady named Michelle Upshaw. I couldn't help but smile bitterly at the obvious demotion. "I've heard a lot about you. As long as you work hard, I have no complaints. Welcome aboard." It felt like a warning of some sort. Probably, she had been fed some not-so-flattering information about me. Regardless, I focused on learning the ropes and doing my job. For someone used to desk work like me, this physically demanding job was quite a challenge. But working hard and feeling useful was not a bad feeling. Michelle was helpful and patient, which made settling into the job easier. To think that there are departments like this in the company, and Michelle has been managing it alone all this time. Experiencing a different side of the company helped me see things I hadn't noticed before. In the end, it turned out to be a good experience for me. Several weeks after my transfer, On a typical day at work, I completed my tasks as usual. Then, during my lunch break, Michelle approached me. "John, you work very diligently. You're nothing like what I was told." "What exactly were you told about me?" From our conversation, it turned out that I had been portrayed as a problematic employee with poor behavior. She was told I was sent here for rehabilitation, and she braced herself for the arrival of a troublesome character. However, once I started working, I performed my tasks as instructed and actively asked questions whenever I didn't understand something. "I can't believe you're the problem employee they described. Is there more to your story?" In response to Michelle's question, I hesitated about telling the truth, but then figured there was nothing particularly secret about it. So I decided to share the whole story. Michelle listened to my story in silence, nodding along as I spoke. After I finished explaining everything, she let out a sigh and said, "Can this company really be okay with someone like that in a managerial position?" I completely agreed with her sentiment. Judging matters based on personal feelings and discarding necessary talent. If someone like Mr. Anderson, who seems to mistake the organization for his toys, is put at the head of a department, I can see the people under him having a hard time. This made me worry about Emma and the rest of my former team. But you, John, are remarkable. Standing up to your boss to protect your subordinate is commendable. It's hard to understand why someone like you had to face such treatment. Michelle's words, acknowledging my efforts amidst the hardship, brought tears to my eyes. I felt like all the emotions I had been holding back were finally being released. I'm worried about everyone back in the department, especially Emma. Under Mr. Anderson, they might just end up following his orders, and Emma could suffer even more. I wish there was some way I could help them. The bond and mutual support we had shared made me feel this way even more. After hearing my story, Michelle fell silent for a while. "That's right. We can't let such injustice go unaddressed." After hearing my story, Michelle said she wanted to take care of the matter herself. She offered to talk to the higher-ups on my behalf, but I refused, feeling I couldn't impose such a burden on her. However, Michelle was persistent and wouldn't back down. "Even if it's President Thompson, I believe he'll listen to an old lady's words." She said this with a smile, which somehow felt reassuring. Not knowing exactly what she planned to do, but feeling like there were no other options, I decided to accept Michelle's offer. The next day, as I arrived at work as usual, Michelle called out to me. "John, your job isn't here today, and you won't need to come back here from tomorrow." Confused, I asked her what she meant, and she just smiled and told me to go to the head office. Apparently, Mr. Thompson had personally issued an order for me to return to the planning and sales department. Could it be that Michelle? "Just go on, and don't ever come back here, all right?" She sent me off with a warm smile, and I thanked her before heading to the head office. "John, why are you here?" The first to approach me was Emma. Her exclamation drew the attention of other department members, who came over. When I announced that I had been reassigned back to this department, everyone was delighted. Of course, there was one exception. "Why are you here? You were demoted." Mr. Anderson, clearly surprised and upset by my return, approached me angrily. "You don't belong here. Get back to where you were sent." Even after I explained about the reassignment, Mr. Anderson refused to listen, insisting he set the rules here. At this point, I couldn't help but see him as nothing more than a pitiful middle-aged man. It was while I was pondering this that something happened. A man dressed in an elegant suit arrived. It was Mr. Thompson, the man who had ordered my return. "Mr. Thompson, what brings you to this place?" Mr. Anderson's attitude flipped, trying to ingratiate himself with Mr. Thompson. Everyone, including me, watched him with disbelief. "What seems to be the problem here? You appear unhappy with my decision. Speak up." Mr. Anderson fell silent at Mr. Thompson's words. He couldn't defy someone in a higher position than himself. But Mr. Thompson continued, unfazed. I've heard about your actions. You've been quite reckless with your position, haven't you? That is, Mr. Anderson tried to explain, but Mr. Thompson spoke about his harassment and misuse of power. His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't smiling. It was clear he was angry. Furthermore, it was revealed that Mr. Anderson had been embezzling funds by manipulating sales figures. Do you think you're the one we don't need in this department? I'm sorry, I apologize. Mr. Anderson apologized, his face pale. But obviously, an apology couldn't undo his actions. Anyone can apologize. What you need to do now is something different. Perhaps, prepare to leave the company with your belongings. Mr. Anderson turned pale at Mr. Thompson's words. Desperately apologizing, he begged not to be fired. Ignoring Mr. Anderson's pleas, President Thompson walked over to me. I've heard about you from my mother. We need someone as diligent as you in our company. Mr. Thompson said this with a smile. When I asked who his mother was, it turned out that Michelle was Mr. Thompson's mother. Originally an employee of the company, Mr. Thompson married the daughter of the previous owner, who had taken a liking to him. Since he was also expected to be the successor, he became a son-in-law, which is why he and Michelle had different surnames. You have a great capacity for judgment, not based on superficial appearances but on the substance within. I would like you to lead the planning and sales department going forward. Mr. Thompson's words, filled with trust, were very reassuring. Thus, I was appointed as the head of the department. Meanwhile, Mr. Anderson was immediately fired and faced legal troubles for embezzlement. That night, I called Michelle to express my gratitude. John, you're not the kind of person to be crushed by something like this. I want you to believe in yourself and aim high. I will never forget this favor. Thank you so much, I said to Michelle. She smiled and encouraged me with a gentle push on my back. Months later, I was thriving as the head of the planning and sales department. Initially, I had my doubts, but the support of my team members, who worked tirelessly, helped me overcome the challenges. Emma, you're doing great. Your sales performance this month is outstanding, I complimented her. Thank you, but it's all thanks to the support from you and everyone else, Emma responded. She was tackling her job while dealing with her disability. My advice on how to leverage and extend her impressive focus resulted in significant improvement in her performance. Our clients, witnessing her dedication and effort despite her challenges, offered their support. This just proves that gender or disabilities don't matter. There are definitely many people who can excel while facing their own challenges. Despite the previous pressure from Mr. Anderson, which had made it difficult for female employees to join the department, I was determined to change that. Committed to creating an environment where all team members, regardless of gender, could thrive and support each other, I continued to walk the path of action, matching my words. I revised the employee training policy, focusing on how to develop each individual's unique strengths. Observing from various perspectives and implementing these changes led to tangible results, and the department began to show a lively and productive atmosphere. Your appointment as the head has led to improved performance. Indeed, placing you in this position was the right decision. Having gained his trust and recognized for my ability to develop talent, I was promoted to the Human Resources Department. My new task was to identify and nurture young talents who would carry the company's future. Though I had once faced unjust treatment, my persistence and refusal to give in led me to where I am now. My belief in myself and my actions had brought me to this point. I vowed to continue living without bending my principles, staying true to my convictions,